All right, good afternoon, everybody. So there have been so many great sessions today, and I think this will be along the same lines. We are talking about channeling success, more specifically talking about some of the strategies or lessons learned when it comes to selling on not your own D2C site, but some of those unowned experiences. So the retailers that you're working with, the various marketplaces that you're selling on. And so I'm Tom Bennett. I'm on the product marketing team here at Akenio, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Penny Rand from Fossil and Hani Yassin from TaylorMade. Andre, before he left, just said something about it's hard to communicate across teams, and I think he named specifically marketing, IT, and e-commerce. And I looked down the line, I was like, I'm marketing, you're IT, you're e-commerce. So this should be interesting, but let's just start with a quick round of introductions. So Penny, we'll start with you. If you don't mind just telling us a little bit more about your role and Fossil.
Sure. Hi, I'm with Fossil, and Fossil, in case you don't know, we're a watch, jewelry, and leather company. We have retail stores, we have wholesale partners, have all sorts of different channels that we're in. I've been with the company for, I hate to say this, because this really shows how old I am, 20 years. So,
Congratulations.
Yeah, very exciting. It'll be 20 years in October. And I've worked in all different kinds of roles within Fossil. Started off in IT, then moved into product development, and then moved back into IT. So I've got the full scope.
Perfect. And you mentioned the types of products that Fossil sells, and I was doing some research on your website, and for those of you who can't see, it says Rad Dance Moves as part of the product assortment. I have to ask, is that just part of the hiring process, or what is that?
Oh, I'm not going to tell. Some things you just don't talk about. Now, the culture at Fossil is just that. It's so fun, and it's so lively. Just real quickly, on my interview at Fossil, I walked in, and I'm in a full suit. You know, I'm old. So I was wearing a full suit, and I'm meeting with the HR person, and she's in a spaghetti strap shirt and blue jeans and tennis shoes, and I'm like, wow, I'm not used to that. So it is that rad company.
Well, the after party tonight, we might have to see some of those dance moves. So, Hani, I'll flip it over to you just to give a quick introduction to yourself and TaylorMade.
Yeah, Hani Yassin. I like warm hugs, so if anyone needs a hug afterwards, let me know. But yeah, thanks for having me back. I've been with Akenio, 3, 4, 5 years now, so it's cool to be back on stage. I look after our global digital commerce business. Digital commerce is kind of a buzz term nowadays, but in our world that means our B2B platform, all the golf shops, think about 12,000 golf shops that we have to support, all of our global e-commerce business, so we're US, Canada, Japan, Korea, all of Europe, Australia, so quite a wide locations and different nuances that each location needs. Then also we have an experiential business, so if anybody's a golfer, raise your hand. You're like a San Diego guy probably, right? The tan. So experiential means like you get fit for golf clubs. So super customized, you go see a professional fitter. We've built apps that make that a very consistent process. Sometimes the fitters are master fitters, sometimes they're brand new right out of college. You want to make sure there's a consistent process in how you get fit into our clubs. So we have a lot of technology around there that we monetize against that as well.
Awesome. I have to say I'm a huge fan of TaylorMade. I'm not the best golfer, but that just makes me a repeat customer of Golf Ball, so you're welcome. And everyone's been learning a ton already today. Just to teach everyone a new word, Hani, this from your website. I loved it. I have to know more. Golf-domistic.
Yeah, so golf-domistic, it is kind of part of our mantra, our values. So if you're a golfer, you probably would understand this. Obviously, optimistic. We work in golf. We're not doing brain surgery. We're not doing heart monitors. We get to go hit a little ball around in the sun. So golf-domistic is an attitude that we walk into the door with. I don't get to play golf as much as I want, but when I do, I'm very optimistic about it. I get to go have this challenge with myself, get to be with my buddies, have a few drinks. It's always a fun time, and that's what we mean by golf-domistic. Like, you walk in our doors, you should have a smile on your face. We work in a great industry, and cool athletes, you know, the Tiger Woods and all these guys. So it's just a really cool thing, and that kind of what our CMO came up with that. And I thought it's a pretty good indication of what it's like to work at TaylorMade.
I love it. Well, golf-optimistic about the session and the events tomorrow. So let's jump into the questions. Handy, you were starting to talk about the different purviews and the B2B experience. If we could just start with the journey of your own D2C site, the wholesale retail partners you have, the marketplaces you're selling on. Which was first, and how did you expand to the next ones? And then I'll ask the same question to Penny.
Sure. So yeah, TaylorMade started in 1979. We're 40-plus-year-old business now. We were the first metalwood, and we sold primarily only wholesale until about 2013. So the whole company and all the system structures that what the last panel was talking about was all built to support the wholesale side of the business, and that's selling one PO with 10,000 units. Pretty easy. You go do that. E-commerce started in 2013. I've been there since 2017. So we've grown that business quite robust. If you think about us as e-commerce as a customer, think of like a Dick's Sporting Goods, it would be e-commerce as a second customer. So we're now the second biggest customer to the broader TaylorMade organization. And then from there, we got established in DTC. We have our own retail stores in Japan and Korea. We used to have some in the US. We've since shut those down. We can get into why and all that later. And then we also expanded, actually in the Japan market, we started on marketplaces. So we went through Yahoo and Rakuten are the big marketplaces there. And there's a lot of channel conflict, which is why we kind of went down that path in Japan. So again, we can talk about that a little bit more. And yeah, then finally in the US, we did go to Amazon, but mostly on a wholesale relationship, a first party relationship, just because we wanted to move more of our kind of soft goods, so bags, ball, those types of things. So we kind of have a wide variety of channels that we sell through now in 2024.
And Penny, when we talk about Fossil and the different channels and experiences that you're selling on, can you just talk a little bit about the journey that you've seen there?
We too are very similar in nature. We started off with our wholesale business, and then we got into our e-commerce business. And then we've been expanding into our different marketplaces, and that's probably where a lot of the big focus is now, is the different channels that we're wanting to get in, the different marketplaces, and there's a bunch of them, and understanding the complexity of the marketplaces and their requirements from a PIM standpoint it's been a challenge and interesting. And then we also have some other competing, I didn't know you could do this, but there's marketing feeds that are sellable market feeds that are also competing with our marketplace stuff. So it's like all that is business driven. So from an IT perspective, it drives me nuts because they come to me as I need you to solve this. And I'm like, well, I don't understand. I thought we were doing this over here. Oh no, that's not what we're doing it on. We're doing it over here. And I'm like, I thought they were one and the same.
Right.
And so it's very complex in nature, but it's an interesting journey for sure.
You mentioned channel conflict, and one of the things I wanted to ask about is as you add that next channel, as you add that next marketplace, what have you seen with regards to this concept of channel conflict, where if you sell on one channel, it might cannibalize your sales somewhere else? Has that been a reality? How do you measure that? What have you seen? And then I guess as a follow-up to that, when it comes to making decisions about your product mix, is it sell every product in your catalog on every channel that you've taken the time to set up, or is it to specifically curate product mixes for channels?
Yeah, so we can start with the channel conflicts. I think it's mostly in our world, the channel conflicts against our other distributors. So like we'll stick with the Japan example. There's a company called Alpen, which is like the Dick's Sporting Goods of Japan. They basically are saying we can't sell direct because they don't want us competing with them. They want to own that market. There's a concept of MAP pricing, mutual agreed price. It doesn't exist in Japan. It's a race to the bottom if you start messing with price. So if we go and say, hey, we're going to compete at the same price as you, they'll just lower their price. There's nothing preventing them from lowering the price. And then what are we going to do next? We're going to lower our price. So that doesn't work. So what we've had to do is come up with unique bespoke items that we can sell on our website to enter the market without upsetting these other channel partners, right? That said, I mean, as we've gone to different channels, we've started with the consumer. I'm sure everyone says consumer-centric, but we really take a look at buyer journeys. We said, hey, what consumer is actually going to a Yahoo or a Rakuten? and we looked at the demo of that person, we looked at their buying behaviors, we looked at their price points of the products, and then we looked at the same people that come directly to our websites, and that told two very different stories. So the products that we have on our marketplaces are a little bit more price point sensitive, a little bit just faster turn, more stock. If you come to our website, we really want to customize the product for you. You're probably a better golfer if you're coming to our website. We have a lot more stats, all the product enrichment information, technical specifications of each club and how you bend them, loft lie adjustments. All that's on that because we know that it's a more serious golfer that's coming to our website and people that want to customize. So we have all of our personalization stuff. You want to put like a logo, if you want to write your name on a golf ball, all that's kind of on our direct site. If you just need like a price point item that you just want to get into golf, you go to the marketplace for. So we've been very kind of, we don't want to compete against ourselves either, right? So we kind of have to separate, but we do look at consumer journeys, understand who's buying in these different kind of channels, and then try to find the right product mix to fit that channel.
Anything to add?
So when it comes to the business and how we differentiate our products, I have no earthly idea. I'll just be honest. I don't know, and that's not my problem to know because I'm from the IT standpoint. So one of the things that we do is that we ensure that all of the product, we're mostly, PIM originally was created for the e-commerce channel. And so what we do is we say every product at some point can go online somewhere. So it's got to be 100% complete and in the different languages so that it can be sellable at any place at any time.
Yeah, something from one of the other panels about being channel agnostic, like the product data should be high quality no matter where you're planning to sell it.
Absolutely.
So you guys both mentioned Amazon in our conversations. You're both wholesale vendors, or this is the relationship you have with Amazon. Obviously, an upside to that is the scale and the ability to have that one-time purchase. The downside is potentially that customer data that everybody wants when selling on new channels. So when it comes to customer data, I'm curious on kind of two things. How do you impact your channel strategy based on the data you do have? So maybe taking your D2C information to then choose which channels to add. And then once you have that data, again, just what are you actually doing with it? I'll start with you again, Hanny.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, the last kind of comment was we actually look at the consumer data, we look at the buyer journeys, we understand what that person wants, and then we try to find if you look at our entire product mix, and we try to find the right products to fit in those channels where those people are. So right place, right time, right product type of thing. I'd say the consumer data has been a focal point for us over the last 2.5 years. We implemented a big CDP, consumer data platform, which is not this topic, I know, but we do, getting away from the Amazons that, don't give us the consumer data is not part of our goal. We want to get more, the closer we are to the consumer, the closer we are to understand the consumer, the better we're going to be able to build future products for. And understand their needs and the whole retention, repeat purchase, lifetime value. Think of every KPI. The more you know about your consumers, those are all going to go up because you can act better on that, right? With more certainty around who you're talking to. So consumer data is the kind of the new gold pot. I think our organization went from this wholesale mentality of all we need to go is find another Dick's. We realized that there's not more Dick's out there. The market's kind of saturated if you think about it that way. So we have to start going after individual consumers and really trying to understand who these people are and start to personalize the website, and a lot of fun stuff's going on there, and we've come a long way there. But yeah, I think it's really understanding the consumer and then being able to build product or product deviations of product. We have something called an SMU SKU. So if we know that Dick's Sporting Goods wants a $2.99 price point, we'll go create a new SKU and call it like M4, which is like a 4-year-old product. We'll bring back that name because we want to hit that price point. And they're willing to buy 10,000 units. Sure, it's worth us to do that. Would we ever put that on our direct website or on our Amazon site? Probably not, because that was built for a very distinct purpose.
You mentioned being an Unlock veteran. You've spoken before. One of the things you talked about last year was wanting to implement a visit experience score on the golf website, as far as you want to drive more people to your website, you want to collect that data. Would love to ask the follow-up question. How has that gone? What have you learned in that experiment?
I'd say it's more complex than it originally thought. I think if you just look at how we track data, you have to go acquire consumers. So there's like a whole set of data and analytics and tracking that you have to do there. And then once they get to the website, there's a whole nother set of data and tracking and analytics that you have to do there. And then once they leave the website, whether they purchase or not, there's a whole nother set of data and analytics and tracking that you have to do there, and trying to stitch all those together hasn't been, in my mind, it was like, sure, we can do that. But actually trying to go execute against it has been a little bit more challenging than maybe I was a bit ambitious in trying to get that done. So we kind of have 3 scores now, based on each of those journeys of where you are on the acquisition side, on the site, and after. So we're working toward it.
Gotcha.
Work in progress.
We'll check in next year. So Penny, I wanted to ask about the PIM, a place that you're very familiar with. As Fossil continues to add additional channels, or you mentioned trying to meet all of the requirements of the channels that you're selling on, what have you learned about the data that's in PIM, and from a maybe more IT data governance perspective, what are some of the lessons learned in setting up the PIM to support that?
I think somebody keyed on it earlier, and they said, don't, so often we look at things from a what are we doing today, and so we're setting up e-com, we're going to support e-com. You got to look broader. When you're really setting up your PIM and doing your implementation, you got to think about, where am I going to take this? Where does this data, where's the future for this data? Our data pretty much began with product development, which is where I came from as well. So I knew what kind of data was out there, but we didn't, it was just, oh, well, we're going to put some of this on the e-com side. What we found out is, we didn't focus. I was talking to a gentleman about this earlier. Length, width, height. Okay, everybody thinks not a problem. That is those are 3 fields of data that just kill me today. We cannot get length, width, and height in our company. It's insane. And I'm like, guys, this is a data problem. This is not that hard. But you just can't believe how hard it is. And it's because it starts out of our control. It starts back with our suppliers. So, the bells and whistles kind of went off today. Oh, supplier data management. Maybe we need to get them involved at that level instead of us, trying to put it on our product developers, because they're too busy developing product. They don't care about length, width, and height. I mean, not really, not from an end consumer perspective. So, just kind of re-looking at your data and thinking about your future and how you're going to share that information, and then bringing in additional teams like your marketing team. We've looked at everything from a product development standpoint. We call it what product developers called it, which is very different from what a marketer might want. And getting that consistency that somebody else said, the C-suite, bringing the C-suite into it, making them understand that the data starts here because it came from product development. So if you want it to be something different, you've got to help support me in making that growth and that change management at its best. I mean, just huge.
One example that this may be a shameless plug, but we get to do a collaboration with Tiger Woods on a new apparel brand called Sunday Red.
Yeah.
And we're launching that on May 1st, right? But we have pants, apparel, so we're a hard good company getting into apparel, so we're learning the apparel business, but it was like the waist and the length of the pants, and the data comes in as 32. And we looked at it going, well, that looks weird on the front of a website to see 32. You would want 32 like, inseam and then 32 waist as 2 separate fields. But something as dumb as that you would never even think about as you got all this stuff come through, and then we're like, wait, the consumer would never understand what that even means. So to your point, it's like starts way early in the supply chain, and working with your vendors to kind of get that data in the way you want it. Now we're going to obviously fake it and have the front end kind of make it look like that to make it consumer ready. But in the future, that was just a simple lesson learned there.
We have some pretty creative product people at Fossil. I mean, that we're all about creativity, and they'll call me and say, "Oh, by the way, we're fixing to launch fragrance," and I'm like, "What did you just say?" we have nothing, and they're like, "Oh, well, it won't take you long to get that up and running, will it?" And I'm like, "When are you launching it?" "Oh, about 2 weeks." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what are we going to do with that?" We make it happen, but man, that family template's going to come in handy. I just know it.
Perfect. It's a perfect transition to something I wanted to touch on, which is the people component of this. You know, we just kind of talked about the data, the PIM data. You've mentioned product teams, we've got marketing, we've got e-commerce, various initiatives. Some talk to each other, some don't. When it comes to this sort of omni-channel approach, or certainly expansion into new channels or launching new product lines, curious to hear from both of your perspectives, maybe more IT product background, more of a digital commerce, e-commerce background. Who should be leading that conversation, and who are the stakeholders that often get left out?
Me. I should be leading. No, not really. I'm just kidding. So we do have a pretty rigid process at Fossil. I mean, we do have a content team that is totally underappreciated at Fossil for me. They are the center of the world at Fossil. They have to support content for wholesale, retail, I mean, the marketplaces. And, you know, you'd be surprised how often people don't go to them first. And it's very, you know, it's that change management and everybody understanding, you know, who needs to be involved in it. But, you know, don't wait 2 weeks before launch. You know, talk to people, make them understand how important it is for them to give you that data well in advance so that you can be ready. So when they're ready, you're ready.
Yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress. On the TaylorMade side, we launch products pretty much once a year. It's a big launch, right? I mean, this year was like January 6th or something like that. But we work 3-4 months just for this one day to get this launch correct. And it's shocking how much stuff comes in like 3 hours before this big launch. Like, it's unbelievable that I've been at it 6-7 years now, and it's still getting images late, getting copy late. So we're tossing around this idea of a new product introduction team that I'm a big advocate for, because there needs to be one throat to choke. Like, a lot of times if you say what happened, it's like that guy, oh well that guy, oh well that guy, and it goes all the way back to the supplier ultimately because the sample came late, right? So we need more discussion about it. We need more people to get on board about it, and we need people to actually be accountable for it, because right now it's just a pointing game, and ultimately that impacts the consumer, which is where I kind of chime up. So we're tossing the idea out. I know that's not a new concept. A couple coumpanies back, we had the 1-800 guy here. Probably you guys have a new product introduction team. You know, so we're starting to talk about that, and hopefully we can have something set up for next year's launch. But it is a change management deal, and it's also an organization deal.
Gotcha.
We're trying to make sure that everybody that has a touch point understands the process from front to back, so that they really get everything that goes into the launching of a product. I mean, people just think it happens, just magic.
Right.
So.
Yeah, we were talking offline about, regardless of the function that person is doing in the moment, it is all connected, right? And the product information really could be that core element that is tied through. And even if the team that's working on that specific initiative isn't aware of the other team doing their initiative, like, the product information still has to get to both teams, and so you have to figure that out. One of the things that I think companies always ask themselves, if they are operating maybe a little bit more siloed, is, should I invest in my D2C experience? Should I invest in expanding to new channels, adding new wholesale retail partners, selling on new marketplaces? What would you say, just based on your experience and what you've seen at TaylorMade and at Fossil, what would you say to that question?
I mean, I'm biased. I think DTC it's a way harder business. Acquisition costs are way higher, but you get to own that customer, and that lifetime value ultimately is going to be a successful business there. I would say just look at the maturity of your business, where you are. Like, Amazon's a great place to start. Get those units out, get the revenue you need, and expand from there. So I think she's got to look, ideally, like, you want to be everywhere to everyone once you know who everyone is, right? So if you pick DTC, that's where I would recommend, just because you have that relationship building.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on the DTC side. You're kind of in control of your own destiny with that. I would say though, like, for us, I'm ashamed to say it, we have another PIM system in-house. They're actually taking our data, but the reason that they are doing that is because they want to support marketplaces in other countries that we don't have a connection with at this point. So they're using that, you know, as to solve a need, right? At least the data is coming from our system, yay. But as we move into, you know, looking at the different world, we're trying to say, what is it that they have that we can't do and support? And seeing some of the great things that Akeneo is coming up with really helps change that conversation that I can have with that product, with that other PIM owner. I'm like, I don't think you're gonna need that in the future. And that's a good feeling to be able to say that, because that's a lot of expense. I mean, why have 2 PIM systems just to support a single market? I mean, it doesn't feel right, doesn't make business sense.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we talked about in our prep call is even if you'd prefer the conversion to happen on your D2C site to get that customer data to build that relationship, figuring out creative ways to leverage those additional channels to at least meet that customer demand. You mentioned in our call, like, if the customer is going to look for your product on Amazon, you have to be on Amazon or else you'll miss that opportunity. So even if you preferred them to be on your site. And so, you know, we've mentioned the technology from the product data, we've mentioned the people from all the various teams, and now the channels. It is really difficult, but bringing those things all together is really kind of the way to operate. So as we're running out of time here, I'd love to ask, just from a predictions perspective, talking about kind of those different components, the people, the technology, the different channels. What are you focused on for this year? What can we ask you about on stage next year at Unlock? Besides the visit.
You go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so we made a big investment in consumer and getting closer to the consumer, building that relationship. Obviously, Akeneo has been the backbone of our product data. We finally off most of the spreadsheets, so we're using some of these features. You know, if we obviously sell products into Dick's, into these marketplaces. I think the next step for us is to automate that. Right now, we're still using Dropbox and some other stuff that's not as efficient as we could be. It sounds like from today, there's some better options out there to do that. We have to enrich our Amazon site. There's probably a better way to do that. So I think there's some incremental investments we can do to build a kind of a bigger net using the product data, just to make those businesses a little bit more efficient in how we operate and run them. So I think that would be a nice win if we come back here next year saying, yeah, we've actually been able to take our top 10 wholesalers, our top 3 marketplaces, and automate the product data.
Correct.
For me, it's the Salesforce connector. That's one of the big things that we're trying to do, because the current structure that we have, we are going through SAP PO to do a lot of translations and a lot of putting the data in the way that it needs to be formatted for Salesforce. So for us, being able to have that connector and to be able to eliminate those bottleneck resources that I have to fight for all the time will be huge for us. It's going to give me flexibility. It's just going to open up a bunch of doors to where we can better service my customers, and that's important.
And sitting next to you during the product keynote this morning, I know you're excited about all these new features. So hopefully we can ask you about those next year as well. So just to wrap up here, hopefully to put up a couple of the key takeaways. Yes, thank you. Just from our conversations, kind of preparing these ahead of time, I think the customer is always right. That's a way to look at where should you be selling your products, even if you want them on your D2C site. Be on Amazon if they want you to be on Amazon, right, as an example. Involving more people early on. We talked about a couple different projects that have happened, and you get to a point and you didn't have the right conversation ahead of time. So involving those people early on. Of course, a plug to the value of having that centralized data in the PIM to give you that agility to meet those new requirements, to launch that new catalog. That can be super valuable. And then one of the things that I took away from our conversation was just think omni-channel first. You know, it's not a D2C problem or a marketplace problem or a retailer problem. It's all connected, whether it's the people, the process, or the technology. So a way to approach the sort of channel strategy. All right, with that, I'd like to thank both of our speakers and hand it off. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.